Hello everyone, and welcome to Walking to Urithiru. I'm Overlord Jeebus, and we're going to jump straight into chapters 1, 2, and 3 that we got on Tuesday. Now, I'm going to kind of condense the quotes from the beginning of the chapters, the epigraphs, and I'm going to condense them together because we only need two of them, and the second one's quite short. So the epigraphs for Oathbringer, well at least Oathbringer Part 1, appear to be from an in-world book of Oathbringer. Now, I originally had assumed that an in-world book of Oathbringer would just be a history of the sword Oathbringer. In Words of Radiance, Shallan mentions that every sword just comes with a book with its history, a bit like your car does when you buy a car. And so I assume that, but it doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like that's the case. What it looks like is someone has either written this before or after the events that are taking place. Now, the two main candidates are, at this point, Dalinar from the future, or the Sunmaker, who was the last one to unite a Lethkar, I believe, and was the one that also defeated the Hierocracy. Which is when the Ardents all decided to take over because they were the best. The quote that we're given, combined together, is, "I'm certain some will feel threatened by this record. Some few will feel liberated. Most will simply feel that it should not exist. I needed to write it anyway." So, a bit ambiguous. Looks like we're going to find out something that the Sunmaker or Dalinar, or whoever it is, the author, did, which some people are happy with, some people aren't, and some people don't think should exist. So, I'm guessing something to do with the Radiance, because the Voran culture, the way it treats the Radiance, is very much as something that existed, something that people are happy about, some people are not happy about, and some people just think we should never talk about them at all. So that's why I'm thinking that we may be getting some hints about the Radiance. So, Chapter 1, we're going to jump straight into one of Dalinar's visions. It's been 6 days since they arrived at Urithiru, which is a day after Adolin killed Sadius. Dalinar is replaying the very first vision he got, which is also, I believe, one of the last ones from Way of Kings, where we find out that Tanavast has died, and he's actually replaying this at will, because it seems the Stormfather now obeys him when he asks, hey, can you just play, vision number whatever. And it also appears that the Stormfather now appears in these visions as a large, building-sized shimmer in the air. Now, whether he was always there, or whether he's just starting to appear in it now because they're bonded, who knows? I mean, a large shimmer in the air, which kind of looks like heat warping the air, isn't super easy to notice, but I mean, he's also described as the size of a building, so who knows? So Dalinar then requests from the Stormfather that he be teleported into the skybox of the vision instead of just chilling out on the top of the cliff with Tanavast and listen to him chatter away. So doing that, he gets teleported down into the city, and he notes that, it's a nice skybox, but there's no bodies or anything like that. This is not a vision of the past that has been recreated by Onads. This is a vision of the future, of what is to come, whether it's literal or metaphorical. But this is the vision that ends with the ground falling down beneath all of Kholinar. This time, when Kholinar falls into the ground, Dalinar is down with it and lets himself fall with it. And this is where he sees what can only be described as an Easter egg in the vision. He sees, and I quote, "A golden light, brilliant yet terrible. Standing before it, a dark figure in black shardplate. The figure has 9 shadows, each spreading out in a different direction, and its eyes glowed a brilliant red. Dalinar stared deep into those eyes, and felt a chill wash through him. Though the destruction raged around him, vaporizing rocks, those eyes frightened him more. He saw something terribly familiar in them." Now, there's lots to discuss here, and instead of doing what I normally do, I don't normally do, but I've only done one so far. Instead of doing the synopsis of what happens and then talking about theories, I'm just going to talk about theories as they go. So, there's a lot to discuss in this vision. The way to interpret it, which is supported by what the Stormfather then says, is that the golden light is Odium, the person in black shardplate is the champion, and the 9 shadows are the 9 unmade. So this is a vision of Odium, the champion, and the unmade. Now, why this is in the vision in the first place is either, as I said, Tanavast left an Easter egg in, or what I find more likely is because the Stormfather says he doesn't see this. He doesn't see the golden light or the black shardplate or the 9 shadows, but he does see the visions because he's able to teleport Dalinar around. So the fact he's not able to see this makes me think that someone has come in and changed the vision from what's originally created. I find the black shardplate interesting because I believe this is the first time we've ever seen or heard a mention of any sort of black shardplate, and what I actually think is, I previously talked about the Black Sphere and about how I thought it was an unmade within a sphere, but I actually do believe this might support the idea that the Black Sphere had voidlight in it, and that voidlight is then used to create shardplate. Other possibility is that if shardplate, instead of being created by investiture in the form of spren, solidifying like a shard blade, is they are forged from essentially the physical manifestation of a shard's investiture. And so it is possible that the Black Spheres are the physical manifestation of Odium's investiture, and the black shard plate is forged out of that, if the shard plate is forged out of the physical manifestation of Honor theory is correct. You can call this material Odium and Neon if you want. I'm not going to, for reasons I can explain later. So, that's the black shard plate, but moving on to that little bit at the end about the familiarity. There's been some debate about whether the familiarity is because of it's a person that he finds familiar, or because there are the feelings he finds familiar. If it's the feelings, it could be because he was previously basically addicted to the thrill back when he was the Blackthorn, and so he's recognizing that kind of wanting to fight, that influence of Odium within a person. He's familiar with that influence. Could just be the hate and destruction that Odium likes to bring. He could recognize the hate within those eyes. But for me, honestly, I do reckon it is referencing the person, and there are two main candidates for me for who could be Odium's champion, and that is Adolin and Ishonai. Oh, actually, sorry, three candidates. Someone else, and it's a theory I like. Don't think it's very likely, but it's Dalinar himself. Adolin, because I believe we're going to see a Fall from Grace storyline with Adolin. I think that he's going to resent pretty much everyone in his life, sees them rise up to become Radiants and become important members of the world, and I'm not sure if he will become a Radiant. I know some of the Orders would agree with his actions when he killed Sadeas, but I personally do not think that definitely means he will join a Knights Radiance. I think that the Knights Radiance have something that is required that Adolin doesn't have. He's never been broken like everyone else has. The worst thing that's ever happened to him is he wasn't allowed to duel, for a couple of... Well, I mean, his mum died, but we don't really know how old he was or, what kind of relationship they had, So we'll see anyway. That's why I think my main guess is Adolin, but I also agree it could be Ishonai because of the fact that, she's a Parshendi, they're easily influenced, or it seems that they're more easily influenced by Odium than humans are, and the champion might just be a listener. That might just be something that the champion is. The third candidate, Dalinar, I believe is a possibility, just because I really like the idea of Dalinar, just how, Gavilar mentioned, they need a enemy to unite them to fight against. Dalinar might realise he has to become that enemy to fight them. I don't think it's going to happen, I just really like the idea of Dalinar sacrificing himself to basically become the evil that will unite the world. And I just like the idea of that. Once the vision has ended, you have a little short chat between Dalinar and Navani, where they mention the Oathgates. And what they mentioned about the Oathgates I thought was quite interesting, and they kind of skimmed over it, was the Oathgates need to be activated on both sides in order for them to work. And the word activated there interested me, because no one activated the side on Urithiru for the Shattered Plains Oathgate. And the fact that someone needs to go and to the cities in question, the other cities, and activate those Oathgates, tells me that they were deactivated. I know it's a ludicrous assumption, but the fact that they were deactivated also tells me that they didn't just stop being used, they were purposely turned off, which isn't, it doesn't change that much. It's just an interesting, okay, so someone made the decision to stop people from coming to Urithiru. It wasn't just the Radiance went away, therefore no one could go to Urithiru. Someone made the decision, let's deactivate the Oathgates. And then after that chat, a scout comes and fetches Dalinar and Navani to let them know that Sadeas' body has been found. We then switch to Adolin, who is busy ordering people about to try and distract himself from what he did. He doesn't want to think about the fact that he's just murdered Sadeas, and to me this is not a healthy reaction. He's avoiding confronting what he did, and I don't think this is going to turn out well for him. And this is another one of the reasons that I think we're going to get a little bit of a Fall from Grace story, because Adolin is not confronting his actions. So we have Adolin, and he's ordering people about, he's talking about Urithiru becoming a city again. It's, they're setting up their tents and their brothels and their bars, and they're setting everything up to actually become a city to live in for an extended period of time, because they're going to need this place for the end of the world. We now have Rushu gets mentioned as the Ardent that is with Adolin at the time. If you remember Rushu, she is one of Navani's pupils, and seemed to be one of the favourites. She was on the Shattered Plains, and it seemed until Shallan turned up, Urithiru was one of Navani's favourites. She was a bit cheeky, she was a bit talkative back, and she couldn't take a hint, but it seemed like she was going places in the world of the Ardents. And she's been mentioned a few times, and the reason I'm talking about her now is because pretty much any female character where I'm not 100% sure about who they are, I'm going to just at this point assume that they're Vivenna, and I'm going to add her to the Might Be Vivenna list, which is currently listed as one of the women with Gavilar in the prologue, the other woman with Gavilar in the prologue, and Urithiru now as well. So, Adolin is then called off because obviously Sadeas' body has been found. Dalinar breaks up a fight between some of Sadeas' troops and Bridge 4. They are all throwing accusations about, and the scout is mentioned again. Now I keep mentioning the scout because Brandon keeps mentioning this scout, and the scout was female, so she's going right there on the Might Be Vivenna list because every female character might be Vivenna, and we've got to look at every single one of them. So Dalinar searches Sadeas' body. They move it into another room. He notes that the wound that killed Sadeas is a battlefield killing. It's not an assassin's killing, it's a knife to the eye, which is the kind of killing move you use to someone who's wearing plate. And so, whilst Dalinar notes that it is not an assassin's killing move, he doesn't say anything, and it's actually Navani that mentions, oh, this must have been an assassin, and Dalinar does not say anything. So I'm suspecting that Dalinar might not think it was an assassin, and I don't think he'll assume Adolin does it. In fact, later on he says he doesn't think that Adolin or Renarin would possibly kill Sadeas. They'd never be those kind of people. But he does note that it is a battlefield wound instead of an assassin's wound. So then Dalinar looks over the people in the room, and he mentions the scout again, because if you mention you can't mention a character 3 times over the course of 2 chapters and not have us suspect that person is important, because that's what Brandon does. At this point, Pelona speaks up, who is the mistress of High Prince Siberial, and says what we're all thinking, which is essentially good riddance. Glad he's gone. Sadeas, don't need him, which no one disagrees with, other than Dalinar, who says we need everyone we could possibly need. At this point, Dalinar takes everyone out to a balcony and points them over to Urithiru. He mentioned that there are large plateaus at the base of Urithiru, which I assume kind of come out like flower petal kind of looking things, and these are for growing crops. He mentions how he doesn't know how they grow crops so high in the mountains, but we all know that the Knight's Radiance probably just they would have used the surge of regrowth, and they would have grown those crops there. He also mentions planter boxes on the terraces below, which, if you don't remember, is where Adolin threw Sadeas' sword after he killed him. And if you've forgotten, Sadeas' sword is the titular Oathbringer. We know, so we've had those planter boxes now mentioned again, and so I have a feeling that someone is going to find Oathbringer, and this is going to cause issues. Dalinar then makes a speech about uniting all of Roshar, and whilst he's doing so, he makes a little aside about Kaladin's squires, and about how, firstly, Lopen has already grown back his arm, which is Grey Ward Locum, round of applause for you. You can now give yourself a good clap. And it sounds like they fade over distance. As Kaladin leaves, the powers start to fade. Now, I don't think this is just a distance thing, because there's a point at the end of Words of Radiance where Lopen is having his arm grow back, and this actually happens whilst one of them is on the Shattered Plains and the other is in Urithiru. And this distance is obviously a very, very large distance, because I believe Urithiru is... Well, actually, don't know where it is just yet. And it's strange that this hasn't been mentioned yet. I'm looking forward to finding out where Urithiru is. Anyway, so this distance is very large, so I have a feeling it's not just distance, but it's time as well. It's something that fades. As Kaladin gets further away, it fades. If he's, teleported via Oathgate, then it fades over time as well. So it's kind of one of those things where, a bit like Stormlight itself, it fades over time. It's not just like there's a cut-off point where you don't have powers. It'll be, he's this far away, you no longer are close to him, your powers fade. So, during Dalinar's speech, he confirms that Urithiru is above the clouds and that they are not affected by the storms, and then he mentions Shin invasions. Now, these have been implied before during Gavilar's speech, where he mentions Shubreth's son Mashamalan. So we do know that the the Shins did have a conqueror, but now we know that the Shin invasion, which is mentioned in regards to uniting all of Roshar, must have conquered a large percentage of Roshar, which is interesting because they're generally a peaceful people. So it'll be interesting to find out what turned them from these almost world conquerors into the peaceful people we know now, and I wonder if it's kind of a demilitarization after a large war kind of thing, where they are ashamed after they're trying to conquering the world, and so they get rid of the military. we'll find out anyway. It'll be also interesting to find out when this first happened, because we do have a word of Brandon that the Shin arrived in Roshar after the rest of the humans turned up. They are no human is native to Roshar, and Shin are even less native. They came. We don't know if they came after everyone else, but they definitely came later than most of them. And so, did they invade straight out? Like, did they turn up and immediately start taking land, or was it something that was over time? They just start building up from their little Shinova. We'll find out. I hope we hear more about invasions. And with the end of that speech, we get to the end of Chapter 2. And at the end of Chapter 2, we have some more High Prince information, High Prince of Commerce assigned, and they all go off to do their own thing. Oh, Renarin is told, hey, just go practice your powers, buddy. You know, you've got some new powers. Go find out what they do. Stop writing on the walls. This is a new palace. You know, we don't want to be ruining the walls. Chapter 3 is a flashback chapter where we have Dalinar being a fucking bamf. And it also reminds me of one of the reasons that I just love Roshar as a setting. You've got rock buds, you know, crunching on the ground. You've got windbreaks, we mentioned. You've got the whole town is in a big lake. You know, it's all that good war stuff and all that good fighting that we like. And it's just... this chapter really made me go, oh, we're back on Roshar, we are. You know, some people standing on top of a mountain. That could happen anywhere, but only in Roshar could you have rock buds crunching underneath feet. So there isn't really much to theorise about. We have Dalinar killing some heir to some, I believe, a High Prince heir. There's not much lore nuggets in here. It's all just kind of standard fighting, sorts of fighting. We do have Dalinar mentioning that he finds someone who says is not much younger than him, and is 17. And the flashback happened 34 years ago, and that would put Dalinar at least 51. But in Words of Radiance, it mentions he's 50. And so, on the Discord, we had a little tizzy where we were like, hold up, what's going on with Dalinar age? How old is the guy? And we actually got I believe it was Joffwu who actually messaged Peter saying, hey, what's going on with this? And Peter has said that when a flashback says X years ago, that isn't always exactly precise. It could be a couple of months off, up to half a year or so. And so, Words of Radiance Chapter 5, Dalinar mentions he's 50. It's late in 1173. By the end of the book, it's early 1174. The flashback is about 33.75 years ago, and that's about in a range of 3 to 5 months that Dalinar could be turned 51. This puts him at 17 for the flashback. So when he says that he is someone who's a little younger than him, is 17, that works out quite nicely. During the fighting, what I thought was interesting is that Dalinar actually describes the thrill, and this is, I think, one of the first direct descriptions of the thrill we've had the most in depth. He actually describes it as a rhythm of killing and dying. And so I'm wondering if Ner'gwarl actually allows people to hear the rhythms, and the rhythm of killing and dying, whatever that could be, maybe just a rhythm of hate or something like that. And he actually allows them to hear this, allows humans to hear this rhythm, is my theory. Because with Gavilar in the prologue, we have a little hint that humans can actually hear the rhythms in some way, or can gain the ability, and so I reckon that's what the thrill is. I reckon the thrill is, as a person attunes themselves to fighting, they start hearing a rhythm which accentuates the traits of fighting. And then we get on to, after Dalinar has killed the heir to the area, we have the archer start shooting at him. Now what I thought was interesting is the archer is described as shooting black arrows from a black bow, and I think it's actually specifically said that Dalinar does not recognize the material, and so this is not a normal bow and arrow set. He is an assassin sent specifically to kill Dalinar, and is under the command of Bright Lord Yezria, yeah, and that's Yezria with a Y, not Yezria with a J. And so I don't think he's an off-worlder or a ghost blood or anything like that, but I do find his unknown material black bow and arrow, which can shoot incredibly accurately, definitely interesting. Oh, and he has a tattoo on his cheek, and we don't find out what the tattoo is of, but if it's of 3 triangles and a little thing, maybe he is a ghost blood, but we'll have to wait and see who this character is. And that's basically the end of the chapter. We have Dalinar not snorting or spitting out his blood out of his nose, because it turns out that's a really bad thing to do. And we just end on a young Sadeas being a scummy fucking dude, because, you know, Sadeas is a scummy fucking dude. We get a hint that this might be the last battle that Dalinar takes part in for a while. And that's the end of the 3 chapters. So we got lots of stuff in chapter 1 related to Odium's champion, which is nice. We have a medium amount of stuff in chapter 2 about the situation they're in, and then we have a nice little flashback in chapter 3, which didn't contribute much to the story, in my opinion. I'm not saying it wasn't irrelevant. It was nice to see Dalinar in action being the Blackthorn, you know. Oh, also, the reason that Dalinar got the name Blackthorn was because of the comments Thaddeus made about him looking like a thorn bush with all the black arrows sticking out of him, in case you didn't know. And so that's summing up those 3 chapters. Before we end, though, I did want to say something as well that I mentioned on last time when I talked about what started the desolations again. Was it Talon coming back, or was it the Black Spheres being given to the Parshendi? And I actually have a reverse of that now as well. What stopped the desolations? Was it Talon staying behind and the other heralds not going back to be brazed, or was it a man named Malishi who was a bondsmith? And I quote, "Malishi retired to his tent and resolved to destroy the Voidbringers upon the next day, but that night did present a different stratagem, related to the unique abilities of the bondsmith, and being hurried, he could make no specific account of his process. It was related to the very nature of the heralds and their divine duties, and a tribute the bondsmiths alone could address." And so it seems like the heralds were choosing not to go back to Braze and leaving Talon to, be the herald of stubbornness and not do anything for 4,500 years. Not give in to his pain 4,500 years. It seems that stopped the desolations from occurring, but the Voidbringers themselves had to be defeated separately by whatever Malishi, the bondsmith did that is related to the unique abilities of the bondsmiths. And I'm sure we'll find out more about those abilities as the book goes on, but we'll just have to wait and see. So, what actually is considered stopping a desolation, and what is actually considered starting? Because I have a feeling desolations are a lot more complicated than we first thought. Anyway, thank you for joining me again. I'm always available to chat to on the Discords, so I'll leave the links to the 17th Shard and the Cosmo Discord in the description. So, reply to some of the theories I've got, some of the theories of your own, stuff that I missed, in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time as we continue walking to Urithiru.